Casey,
What's up, homie?
what's up, brother? Chilling, man. What you up to?
Very little, very
That's
little.
good. I like it.
It's freezing here in Salt Lake, dude. It's so cold.
Oh, you're in Salt Lake? That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love skiing up there. I've got some buddies that works the slopes last couple years. Man, I got spoiled. I getting some oil off my face. I got spoiled 2, 3 years, maybe 4 years ago. Came up there, flew in, got 6 feet, got dumped on, shut down the mountain. My boys worked the ski slope, so we got to like run all the bowls and all the backcountry stuff with nobody out there with like dynamite packs on or something like that. Or I guess avoiding the dynamite. Maybe we had avalanche gear. That's what it was. But dude, ever
Knowing
since
knowing
then,
you, you probably found the dynamite. Knowing you and your story, you were probably all about that.
for sure, man.
It's
Yeah.
a cool place. I mean, I know you talked about in one of your episodes going to like Vail and Breckenridge or wherever you went in
Yeah.
Colorado. It's great there too. It's just that like Salt Lake, there's so many different access points to so many different resorts. And so if one
Mm,
canyon's closed, it's only an hour to get to all the other resorts. Like it's not
yeah.
that big of a deal.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like in Colorado, everything's kind of spread out and you got to drive a couple hours to get wherever you're going.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
one road. Like I-70 is the only way to get up from Denver to some of those resorts. I've been in Denver on like a Saturday morning and had to drive back from Denver to Salt Lake and thinking like, okay, like I want to get out of here really early. I've been in my car at 5 a.m. driving and parked on the freeway, like
Wow.
parked.
Is there are you guys have any snow on the mountain yet or are you still waiting?
They're just starting to open. Yeah, the first resort opened maybe like 2 weeks ago. It's cold enough that they've been making snow, and I think with this
Nice.
next storm that we're getting, should be a nice dump, and that should be pretty good to get
What
started.
what are you hearing on the forecast? Like because we have El Nino over here on the
Yeah,
East Coast. Like I hate East Coast skiing, Ice Coast, East Coast. I'm wondering, is this the year to like hit Killington or something like that? Do you think you guys are gonna get hit pretty good this year?
we had by far the biggest record year last year.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if it happened twice. It is going to be an El Nino around here, but I want to say they said colder and drier would be the effect out west.
Mm.
Um, my last client I was just dealing with is in Virginia, and she was telling me about El Nino and what's going on up there, and just like how the weather is just changing and
Yeah,
kind of interesting.
it's cold as hell, man. I mean, my ice bath. I went out there this morning, and the son of a bitch had ice on top of it. I was like, wow. We don't usually get that kind of cold until January. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Well, North Carolina is beautiful. Dude, I how did I find you? How did we hook up?
I don't know. I was just looking at your we went through the podcastguest.com thing, but
Oh,
I'm
that's what it
looking
was.
I saw you reached out and connected and there's some people that I know from the Primal Health Coach community, I
Yeah.
believe. Did you do that certification or
I didn't do the certification, but we've interviewed Elle and Brad Kearns. I know
Oh,
you've
okay. Yeah,
done
yeah.
that
I
with
went
her.
on with
And
Elle at one point, and
cool.
she helped me with some thyroid stuff. She's awesome.
She's smart. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
very smart.
yeah.
And then yeah, I know Josh Perry. We hosted him a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. So
Nice.
yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this. This will be great. We don't have bosses or sponsors, so say whatever, promote whatever. I'm just going to keep everything in your wheelhouse. For the most part, I think we're backed out maybe like 3 weeks on releases. We do three of these a week, and so it's kind of a lot. But I'll have everything done by today. So all the editing, I'll send you the raw Zoom stuff, the video, and the audio that comes with Zoom. I'll send you some social media stuff, and there's zero obligation, but just know that when you get it, you can do whatever you like with it. If there's something that is of use for you, if you want to share it in one of your groups, if you want to republish it, if you want to edit me out, like you can do whatever you like with it as soon as you get it. And then, yeah, when I send it over to you today, I'll tell you the release date. And then I'm not sure if you do much on YouTube, but we'll also launch this on YouTube. I normally post the full video the day before the audio drops. So
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, sounds great, man.
cool. Okay, awesome. And then the way mine works is my music plays live on my podcast mixer. You won't be able to hear it, so it'll just be awkward silence for like 30 seconds. I'll fade it down, unmute myself, I'll get you introduced, and then yeah, we can just keep rolling from there.
Yeah, sounds good, bro.
Cool, dude. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, And today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Mitch Webb is a former corporate sales executive turned integrative health coach. Mitch discovered his love for health after battling traumatic brain injuries, Lyme disease, diabetes, a hormone imbalance, and even a black mold infection from a home he had moved into. Wow. Naturally, this overwhelming list of physical challenges began to take a psychological toll. Mitch began to battle insomnia, extreme stress, and panic attacks. Only after visiting with an integrative medicine specialist did Mitch begin to put the pieces together and discover that he was dealing with unresolved trauma that spiraled into a perpetual and vicious cycle of poor lifestyle choices and harmful habits. Now, after healing in his body and rejuvenating his mind, Mitch has made it his mission to help others both unmask their trauma and find healing, both emotionally and physically. Mitch specializes in helping individuals that have busy careers who are increasingly concerned about their health, sleep deprived, overweight, overly stressed, and lack the energy to get out of bed in the morning. You can find him at his website at www.mitchwebb.com. Mitch, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Balanced Body Radio.
Casey, thanks for having me, man. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. It was fun to chat with you offline a little bit about your skiing adventures here out west. The most legit skiers that end up in the West start where you are. Like if you can ski New Hampshire on an ice sheet, like you can come and kind of hang out in the West where it's just like soft, fluffy powder. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that takes me back to the trip that I was describing on the way on the before we got on the call, and going down my first powder, right? Like first powder run, and just like rooster tailing, the little 6 feet rooster tail behind my buddy, just like lean back, and man, once you get a taste of that, it's hard to ski on the East Coast again.
It's pretty magical. We're pretty spoiled around here. When I hear like comments from people saying like, yeah, it really only snowed like 5 inches overnight, I probably won't go up today. You know what I mean? It's pretty spoiled.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah.
Well, we were talking about a recent trip that you took to Colorado to go ski. You've been here several times last year. So a normal ski year, like a good ski year here in the Salt Lake Valley is like 500 inches up at some of the resorts like Alta, Snowbird. If they get 500 a year, that's pretty good. The last few years we've had like 350, 400, like not great. Last year, it started bombing snow and it did not stop until the ski resorts got over 900 inches. It was mega, dude. It was so much snow.
Wow.
So much snow.
Is that fresh powder like every day, basically?
It's a lot of dumps. I mean, I shoveled more than a foot off of my house, and I'm just in the valley. I'm at 4,500 feet, like not even that high. I shoveled over a foot of snow several times last year. So whatever the nature of the storms came in last year was like, yeah, it's insane. I've got a buddy who lives up at Brighton Resort, and the snow literally crushed his car. He had to get a new car this summer.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I remember that trip I was telling you about where we got like 6 feet. That's what I remember is like digging in and out of the house every day and night.
That's amazing.
Shoveling snow. Yeah.
That's amazing. And before we get people too excited about Utah and the Salt Lake Valley, remember, go visit Colorado. It's much better over there. Nothing to see here. It's already busy enough in Salt Lake. And as always try to send people somewhere else and not check out Utah. It is a bit
There you go. There you go.
And you're in North Carolina, which is also a gem. I've spent a little bit of time there, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I love it. I'm right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's kind of cool because we're 2 hours from the beach and 4 hours from the mountains. I actually went to school at the beach, love the beach, and love having both. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they talk about that blue Carolina sky. That is no joke, and neither is the humidity in the summer.
It does not play.
Oh man, does not play. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, you've got such an interesting story. We talked a little bit about it in the introduction, and you've come away with a lot of learning that you're now sharing with people, which I would love to talk to you about. But let's kind of get some background on you and how you first started this journey into health.
Yeah, I mean, I got sick. I had a couple of different situations that led to a bigger situation, and it kind of snowballed for years, and I would say I'm still recovering from it, right? But like you mentioned in the intro, this year has been a major turning year because I found trauma work and healing the nervous system, specifically from Irene Lyon, her 21-day nervous system reset, her Smart Body, Smart Mind program that I'm in now changed my life. And before that, I was just searching for answers, looking high and low, doing everything that I could to improve my health. When, looking back now, I had a limited belief that I was broken, that I needed to find an answer to fix myself. And the more I went down that rabbit hole of healing the trauma, the more I realized I was never broken. There was some things that happened in childhood trauma, And when I got clear on that and started to work on that, my health, all the odd symptoms and things that diagnoses you could have given me over the year, everything started getting better when I started prioritizing my mental health.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's talk about the physical side first before we talk about some of that childhood and emotional trauma. But yeah, tell us, when did the traumatic brain injury start?
Yeah, I was 20 years old. I was in Germany. I was there for study abroad at the World Cup. Fell out of a second story window, hit my head while I was partying. Didn't go to the hospital. Started having panic attacks, insomnia right after that. And about 6 months after I got home, I broke out in an autoimmune disease, which is very, very common when it comes to trauma.
So autoimmune. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I guess. So I'm pausing because there's little breaks. So feel free to just jump in and ask me any questions. I'm just going to roll with it if you want me to. So yeah, hit my head, had the autoimmune. They kind of sent me on my way. They gave me some stuff for the autoimmune. They gave me some anxiety medication. I was thankful for that at the time because I was able to sleep. I didn't know how insidious it was and habit forming it could be. And there was a period where I had to wean off of that eventually. But out of school, so I made it through school with the anxiety and the insomnia. I was managing with the pills, and then I went into the corporate world. I worked for my family business. I worked there for 7 years in sales. Worked with a lot of big corporate accounts, and with the corporate lifestyle, as I'm sure if there's a listener that's working in corporate knows, I mean, it's stressful as hell. So there was more medication, there was more sleepless nights. And on top of that, I moved into a house that had black mold in it. My wife and I, girlfriend at the time, rented this house, beautiful home, didn't think anything about it. About 3 months into living there, I would get lost driving to work. My joints hurt so bad. I was exercising again at that point after not work. I mean, I was an athlete growing up. I didn't work out so much in college. I was more doing those 12-ounce curls. But I started working out again, and it was just normal, I thought, to have to ice your joints after every exercise, after every workout. And I was losing my mind. I was getting so sleep deprived that I was hallucinating and like I said, getting lost on the way to work. I knew something had to change. And we moved into this house. I had already started making changes with my health. Things were going in the right direction. I had a really good community of people around me supporting me. And I think that's why I was making progress. But about 3 months into living in that house that had black mold in it, I quit sleeping. I couldn't even, nothing would help. At that point, I started asking people for more medication that was not prescribed to me, and then that didn't work, and that scared the shit out of me. So I reached out to a functional medicine doctor. Thank God, had some really good health conscious people around me. Hey, go see functional medicine. For those listeners that I'm sure functional medicine is like root cause medicine, and so we were trying to figure out what's going on here. And at first they didn't. Eventually, we found mold. I had Lyme disease as well, and I got Lyme disease from living in that environment. So if you can hear my accent, southern guy, I've been bit by ticks my whole life. I've been in the woods since I was a little kid, right? And that living in that environment is it's an opportunistic pathogen, so it is allowed to come out. And mold and Lyme are kind of the same thing. So the symptoms really overlap. Just inflammation. I was kind of really burnt out, so anxiety, and then tired and wired at nighttime, I couldn't sleep, and was just a mess. And they even moved us out of the house and said they renovated the house, and I got a little bit better while I was moved out, moved back in, got worse. I thought I was going crazy, man. And one day I'm moving a refrigerator around in the kitchen, and I see water shoot up out of the floor, and I'm like, what the hell? And I ripped all the floor up. There was 4 or 5 layers of just black mold. Clemson University said it's one of the worst cases of a black mold that they've seen. And so I got out of the house. I started working with Dr. Dan Pompa. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a integrative. Yeah, he's out there in Salt Lake.
He lives in Park City. Yeah, just right down the road. Yeah,
really good guy. And he really took me under his wing, and he could see, my passion. And, at that point I fell in love with health and wellness. I was ready to leave the corporate world and start something new, and I became a health coach. And he was like, pain to purpose is his big thing. And I've certainly adopted that phrase and believe in that. And he was always telling me hey man, you're you're meant to do something big. You're meant to help people. And so I'm going to teach you, how to do this with other people. And so I didn't mention this. I had diabetes as well. I had a lot of insulin resistance, metabolic stuff going on. So he helped me. The doctor I was working with at the time was actually doing heavy metal detox wrong. And Dr. Pomp and I actually talked about that on his podcast, basically called Mad Hatter's disease. When you take when you're detoxing like that, you want to have a binder in the gut, clay, charcoal, that kind of stuff. And it's basically like a catcher's mitt. It catches the toxin, brings it out in your poop, your stool, so that you're not redistributing that back into your brain. And that's what happened to me, because they gave me like weak binders like chlorella or something, like chlorella and like spirulina, which sure, that can be a heavy metal binder, but it's extremely weak. It's not going to bind up, that kind of stuff. And so he helped me with that as well. We detoxed heavy metals. We detoxed Lyme, mold. He helped me reverse the diabetes with the ketogenic diet and fasting over about a year. I was one of those really tough cases that it was really hard for me to break through and make ketones. And before meeting him, I didn't really understand that. I felt like I was doing everything right. And for me, it really took that, long, what do you call it? Extended fasting. So like more than 24 hours. But yeah, so I get through that, and we're only on like chapter 2 now. So I get through that. I'm in love with health and wellness. I start coaching people. It's going really well. I moved to Raleigh from a smaller town to meet more like-minded people. And I'm going to see a client. I get hit by a dump truck, and so it totals my car. Post-concussion syndrome for a year. I went from exercising. I was in the best shape of my life. I went from, working out 10 times a week to not be on a walk more than 15 minutes at a time. I remember being afraid. I would set a timer, and because I would sometimes forget like how long it's been. And if it was 20 minutes, I was terrified, because that meant such debilitating fatigue for days after that. And I already wasn't sleeping. And so it just made things worse. But over a year, I got better. I got really into Dr. Joe Dispenza and manifestation, and was doing a lot of meditations for 1-2 hours a day to get into the feeling of what I want and creating. And it worked. I feel like I healed myself. And then chapter 3. So then I'm like doing my first workout or two, and I get in a sauna. This guy's hacking up a lung, and it's before anybody knew what COVID was. And next day I was sick as a dog. It took 2 weeks to get over it. At that time, I was in love with fasting, and I was able to get rid of any kind of illness in a 24-hour period with that. And it was amazing to me that it wouldn't go away. And then, fast forward 6 months after the illness, after COVID, I had long haul COVID. So I had just major disruption in gut health and the immune system, hormones, you name it. I got placed on testosterone and thyroid because of, doctor gave me testosterone, which I don't think I needed it at the time. Gave me way too much, worse anxiety and sleep, which gave me the thyroid issue. And getting on that medication was really hard because I didn't ever need that. And I got better after a year, and then I got COVID again, dude. And I got long haul again. And this time I took, do you remember the name of the horse pill that they gave people?
Well, yeah, was it ivermectin, I think was one.
Yeah, ivermectin. So like,
yeah,
it was taking forever to get over it. Like when I dealt with COVID, it wasn't a big deal. It was always the repercussions after the long haul stuff. And, it was like a cold. 1 to 3 days tops. But then 2 weeks later, I got crushed, and it took, a year each time to get over it. But this time I took ivermectin because I was wanting to be proactive, and that destroyed my gut. I don't think I didn't need a, anti-pathogen type thing, not microbial. What's the word I'm looking for? Like anti-pathogen or whatever, worms. I didn't obviously need that. I lost 40 pounds. I went down to 140 pounds at that time. More hormone stuff, more sleep and all this. But I had a really good mentor at the time. She was a medical medium, and she was helping me channel source, get in touch with my spirit guides, with my spirit, to help guide me out of that. And that is about the, so I got it a third time. It wasn't that bad the third time, but that is when here locally. So now we're caught up. We're like a year and a half out from today. About a year and a half ago, we started a men's group here in Raleigh called Men on a Journey for men to open up, be vulnerable. And some of the guys in the group helped me identify some trauma, some childhood trauma, and all these other traumas that I'd had with illness and shock trauma and accidents and all this stuff. And yeah, they got me to a trauma specialist, and I started doing EMDR. I've been working through the courses that I mentioned with Irene Lyon. And yeah, I got off this year. I started exercising again. I got off of thyroid. I'm currently weaned off of testosterone about 12, 14 weeks ago. That's a little bit rough right now, to be honest, but things are going in the right direction. I gained weight back, got my energy back before this, coming off these hormones things. I was really sleeping well, and I know that this last piece with the hormone, it kind of feels like being at the final boss of a video game. So I've been climbing the mountain for a while, and I've learned so much, and ultimately, to kind of put a bow on this, everything came back to the unregulated, unresolved trauma that I experienced, starting in childhood, and then all these other situation scenarios that kind of added more load to that.
I just would never hire you as a coach. You haven't experienced enough at this point. You know what I
mean? Yeah, I know, right?
That's crazy. The ivermectin thing, that's so funny. We're probably going to get deplatformed for even saying that word. Remember, that was like so politically charged. Like, you could barely, talk about it. It's so funny.
That, and like what was the other one?
Yes, chloroquine, hydrochloroquine.
Hydrochloroquine. Yeah. I was ready to take anything, and like having this biohacker background that I really don't embrace as much anymore. It was like I wanted to control it. I wanted to beat it into submission. You know what I mean? And that was just kind of the wrong direction for healing.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Like I said, we're going to talk about some of that emotional stuff. I think that's so important. Before we do, a curious question. Like, I have no idea. How do you get rid of black mold?
How do you get rid of it? You get out of the house first, and you have to basically destroy everything that so you have like these spores that are going to get on the couches and the furniture. So you literally, it's a major house cleaning, right? We were like, all right, I guess this is spring cleaning on steroids. So you get rid of everything. You want to remediate the home. A lot of people will say like the incorrect stuff that the landlord that I was living under did was they put like ozone through the ducts, and that just doesn't do it. Some people will say put Clorox on it or dry it out. Like, you have to kill it, and you have to remove it and cut it out and rebuild sometimes. And if you don't get even the smallest amounts, it'll come back. And there's one product that Dave Asprey actually makes. It's called Home Biotic. And so if you have some black mold at the home, you can spray that on. And anybody that's, especially here in the South with, like you mentioned, the humidity, it's everywhere. It's rampant. We have a lot of flooding sometimes as well when we have hurricanes come through. So, I would say hire someone or a remediation company to come out. You can buy these at-home mold tests. I actually found mine I was leaving the doctor's office. They were like, hey, we got to check for mold. And I was like, yeah, there's no mold in my house. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I happened to just turn on a podcast. It was Dave Asprey, and he was like, we're giving away free at-home mold tests. And along those lines, he has a documentary called Moldy that I would encourage anyone who's concerned about that to check out. And I got the test and found out that I had mold, and the rest is history, man.
Wow, that's crazy. And then I also had a question about Lyme disease. Out west, we don't get that very often because we don't have ticks. You mentioned functional, seeing a functional doctor and being very grateful that you did. Do you know what the allopathic, typical, like conventional way of treating something like that is? I've heard it's awful.
Oh, yes, you're right. I had a lady just a week or two ago, reach out. We did a podcast together, and she was like, yo, I came down from Canada. My kid got bit by a tick. Like, I got this bullseye rash. And so, man, I mean, If you like, that's what you get sometimes is when you, and not always, but when you get a Lyme, you'll have a bullseye rash at the tick bite. You don't have to. I didn't. But you want to look for that, and you want to take the tick in if you can. You want to go see the doctor. But allopathic treatment is, a lot of times they deny it. They don't even think it's real. So that's what was blowing her mind, and it blew my mind because I haven't really been thinking about Lyme for over a decade. You know what I mean? But I certainly have clients and conversations about it. I was shocked to know that there are doctors out there that like deny it, kind of like what's something else that's ridiculous, like flat Earth denier or round Earth deniers or something like that. It's just like it doesn't make any sense. Yet we're still doing it, and so treatment's going to be doxycycline right out the gates. And but then you have like acute Lyme and you have chronic Lyme, and that's when it sits in your in your joint, or excuse me, gets into your brain, causes all kinds of inflammation and neurological symptoms. So at that point, it's a different game, and you don't have to do antibiotics like that as well. I did herbal antibiotics.
Gotcha. Okay, very interesting. We're just gonna let the signal catch up. It's been a little fuzzy.
Yeah, I saw that.
No, you're good. You're good. Let's start from there. Okay, interesting. I appreciate you kind of going over that. You mentioned something earlier, and something that we love to talk about around here is the ketogenic diet. And at this point, I think we've got a really good idea of how ketosis in particular can really help with brain health. I mean, we've interviewed somebody just recently who's actually reversed dementia at age 70 and is now leaving an assisted care facility to go be a health coach because she feels amazing and she's literally like reversed her dementia. So we've got more kind of information with research on that kind of stuff. How did you find the ketogenic diet, and what things did you notice when you started to implement those things?
How did I find it? I mean, dude, when I got interested in health, I'm a podcast junkie, dude. So I was just listening to all the podcasts. The first thought that comes to my head is I remember I was even more a fan of like fasting with ketosis, I would say, because it made me feel so good at that time. And I remember the first time hearing about fasting and hearing someone say, I didn't eat for 5 days. And I remember going like, all right, this is too crazy. I turned off the radio. And then fast forward like 2-3 years after that, it's really, I feel like it saved my life. So I was excited about, I had a lot of concussions obviously, and I was excited about that. Actually, I do remember somebody gave me like a ketone at one point. That's what it was. Yeah, somebody get the early like salty ketones that were out, make you shit your pants. I remember having that, having a ketone, and I might have been like fasting until lunch, and it's like all the anxiety that I was dealing with just like turned off, and I was like, what in the hell is this? Oh, and a similar story with bulletproof coffee too. So like the first time I heard about bulletproof coffee, you know how the Kerrygold has like the sticks and it's 2 sticks in one? Yeah. So I'm like 23 years old or something like that at the time. I don't know if I'd ever even been into the grocery store other than to buy beer. And I go get Kerrygold butter as instructed, and I get my MCT oil, and bro, he said, if you eat a lot of calories, that's me. Go ahead and have a half a stick. So I see this block and I'm like, I'll cut it in half. And I threw a whole stick of butter in there with, at least 1 or 2 tablespoons of MCT. We're probably talking like 1,000 calories or something like that.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like, dude, I didn't eat the rest of the day. And I was like, I was kind of waiting to have a heart attack. You know what I mean? Like all that butter at the time, like we were afraid of fat, and not me, but like our culture was afraid of fat. And, but I didn't eat until I got home. And I think I got into I probably didn't get into ketosis because it took me a long time, but I imagine my insulin levels or my blood sugar, came down enough for my brain to go, oh my God, to like to come up for a breath of air. And I do remember calling my mom and being like, holy shit, I drank this coffee today and I don't know what's going on, but like I am sick, something's wrong. And like, I feel so much better because of this coffee. You need to go get you some bulletproof coffee. So that was my bulletproof coffee, and ketones were my intro into the ketogenic diet.
Wow, you're lucky you didn't have to buy a new pair of pants, dude.
Bro, I definitely had the disaster pants a couple of times back in the day.
Yeah.
That's one thing I used to do is just, and I've learned to do better now, but I was just pushing things so hard, trying everything. More is always better, and that got me into trouble sometimes, especially with the bulletproof coffee in the beginning.
Well, definitely. And you suffered from heavy injury. So of course you'd want to do the maximum that you possibly could to help heal from that. Yeah, I always recommend if people are going to do that to just go a little easy, just kind of start slow because it can pass through you very quickly. We'll just say that. For
Yeah.
somebody who is unfamiliar with ketones and brain health, can you explain what the link is, why that's the case?
Well, there's in my family we have I have an ApoE34 gene, which is make me more susceptible to Alzheimer's. I've had head injuries that exponentially increases it. My family has a history of Alzheimer's. So for me, that was an interest as well. And whenever we can burn ketones for fuel, or we can burn sugar. And to burn ketones, it's got to come from the food that we eat, the fat that we eat, void of carbohydrate, and our body tissue, which I think that's where the magic is. The brain, what is it? Dementia is brain diabetes, so type 3 diabetes, right? So it's the inability for the brain to utilize glucose, but we have another fuel source, and so we can lower carbohydrates or take supplements, fast. Even exercise to get those benefits of autophagy, which is the self-eating, the body literally eating itself, and I would say eating itself and getting all the. For someone like myself, that was a huge benefit too. Is the autophagy? That's what Dr. Pompa taught me. Is where we're really clearing out the dead cells, old damaged cells, and making new ones. So not only lowering inflammation, boosting energy, and potentially sleep and mood. And, it felt like at the time, just like this magic, to me. And that was a journey of trying to get into ketosis as well. So we can chat about that, or you got another question. Yeah.
No, it's fascinating. The autophagy thing is super cool. And the way I'll kind of, make an analogy of that for people if they need it is like, imagine you're building a building and every single day you're getting shipments of new bricks. So if you break a brick, it's not that big of a deal. You just chuck it in a pile in the back. You're going to get new ones coming in each day. But if those deliveries stop, all of a sudden, when you need a brick, you're in a little bit of trouble. But then you realize, like, I've got a bunch of broken bricks. Let me see if I can reformat these, package these a different way, fix them up to make them into better bricks. And I kind of feel like that's an okay analogy to say that, like, we have the ability to repair. We can regenerate and get rid of like old proteins and things like that. And as long as we allow our bodies to do it, and it doesn't do it very well when we're always constantly in the fed state. And that's one of the things that fasting does so well. It gets you out of the fed state so your body can work on that repair process. Would you say that's a fair analogy?
Yeah, totally, man. Definitely. I like it.
Cool. Well, and a lot of times when people hear that I am an advocate of ketosis, they think I'm saying I'm an advocate of the keto diet. And sure, like that's one way to do things. And I just always want to reiterate, like, I think most of us should be in some kind of a state of ketosis for most of the time. Not everybody, not all the time, but I think we really thrive and our health really fixes itself when we're in some kind of state of ketosis. Now, there's a million different ways you can do that. And, melting sticks of butter in your coffee is maybe one of the ways to help get you started, but that's not the only way to do it. And so talk about like metabolic flexibility and how, you've done what I do currently, which is carnivore diet, but you've also realized that, yes, you can bring in more carbohydrates and you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to health and choosing a diet, I think it's extremely individualized. And before we make that decision, to any approach nutritionally, I think we need some context, right? So it's really down to an individual level. Give me actually, I just kind of lost my train of thought. Give me the question one more time.
Yeah, just the benefits of staying in a state of ketosis and different ways of doing that aren't just the keto diet.
Yeah. So for me, going back to the conversation about context, having diabetes and metabolic issues like being overweight, or I'd say even being sedentary, or maybe having brain issues or chronic disease, like the ketogenic diet is absolutely fantastic for healing, for regeneration, for energy, for lowering that inflammation. And Yeah, in the beginning, I was doing all the coffees and the ketones, and that's kind of how I prefer to do it these days. I'm doing more of the Metflex stuff. I would say my ketosis is it's never scheduled anymore. It's always sporadic if I'm going to fast, and I don't do more than every now and then I'll do a 24. Even 16 to 18 hours is going longer for me. I'm more of a 12 to 14 guy. At one point, I gave myself a thyroid issue because I was lowering carbohydrates for so long, and I was even doing refeeds at nighttime. So I was doing 150 grams of carbs at nighttime, and it still wasn't enough for me. But whenever I started having, how Brad Kearns is gone and done like this, him and Jay Feldman doing the what is it, like more like Ray Peat stuff where you're eating more carbohydrates, like that really worked well for me too. But I'm also kind of like Dan Pompa. I'm a big fan of what does he call that? Yeah, it is flexible dieting. So like moving in and out of different eating strategies throughout the week and the day or the month, depending on my personal needs and what feels good for me. So how do we get into ketosis? Like we said, I mean, you can go and jump in and I am looking at ice baths. I'm thinking about that, like ice bath. That really gets rid of glucose and can lower ketone bodies, especially if you're in a fasted state and it's in the morning and you're not eating a lot of carbohydrates. You can do that by not eating carbohydrates, like doing a carnivore diet, doing a very low carbohydrate diet, like maybe under 50 grams of carb. You can do that through fasting, and even through exercise. There's what's the guy? I'm blanking on his name right now, but he did a big podcast not too long ago about he stopped fasting and exercising more, right? So getting autophagy benefits that way. And so what I'm trying to say here is like there's so many options, right? And that's what's so cool about it. Like we can interject these ketones and get the benefits and move in and out of these eating strategies to kind of get the best of both worlds. I mean, at one point, I'm not really tracking blood and stuff like I was at one point, but when I was doing CrossFit before, all these accidents and stuff, man, I could do CrossFit during the day and, do 200 grams of carbs at nighttime, and I'd be in ketosis in the morning when I woke up. And I was also, intermittent fasting and doing longer fasts regularly. And it's something that I've been away from for a while. I've been eating a lot more carbs once I figured out this thyroid thing to kind of keep that coming in. But I love fasting. I always go back to the 24 hours or work things in. I'm thinking about at the first of this year, maybe doing some sort of detox, maybe a 3-5 day fast, like water fast kind of thing, because I think it's just so good to hit the reboot button. And that's what health to me is about, is like having a tool belt where you can pull out the right tool for the job. And ketosis is certainly a part of that for me and the clients that I work with.
Yeah, I think it's a really good tool, but it is just one of the tools that you can use. There's lots that you can use, and there's lots of different ways to get there. I think it's a major one. But I want people to take from that a little bit of hope that, like, no, it's not that we're saying carbohydrates are bad. We're saying they're way too available all the time to everybody 365 days out of the year. And if people do what you do and basically be strict with it for a little while, get back into a good, healthy metabolic state, you have more allowance to have those. And you can start to add things back in and see what works for you and see what doesn't. There will be a tolerance there. So it's not like you can never have another carbohydrate again for the rest of your life. You can, and you can be really strategic about it and put it around your sporting events or workouts or whatever, and like have really good results. It can help you sleep. Like there's lots of different options for people, but I do think it takes that first step of being strict for a little while to give you the right to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the standard, I mean, I think everybody is so different, but like to lump everybody into what I see a lot is a standard American who's extremely sedentary, who's eating a bunch of, terrible food. Let's get you off of that. Let's get you eating real food. Okay, let's start looking at carbohydrates. Let's start understanding macronutrients. Let's get your protein up. Let's start to slowly lower your carbohydrates. Let's get you into a level of ketosis. Let's teach you how to exercise. Let's get you doing a little bit of fasting. And, you do this for 8 to 12 weeks. And you want to make sure that you are making ketones. That's, like I said, that was one thing that was for me. But yeah, after you're done with that, I'm all about open the diet up as much as you can. And it's cool because now you're not in a hole anymore and you have options and you can try new things. Whereas before, where I was, I didn't have any other option. It was like, hey, bro, you're eating no carbs for a period of time. You're not eating these foods because you're reacting to them, and doing that hard work, and ultimately getting to a place where you heal, where you improve, and you get to choose and have all these different varieties of foods, even the nostalgic foods from the past. You can say, hey, this doesn't work, this does. It's really a journey of like learning so much about yourself, and I don't think it ever stops.
Yeah, I love that. I couldn't agree more with nutrition. It always seems like so vexing. There's always more and more loopholes and rabbit holes to dive down, and you unlearn and relearn and all kinds of different stuff.
Yep.
You mentioned the exercise, and I mean, just yesterday, somebody on my neighborhood Facebook page said, I'm a mom. I'm super motivated. I'm ready to start my workout program." And you kind of got that sense that, like, yeah, this person is really motivated, but motivation only gets you so far, and she's probably tried this 100 times and it may or may not have worked. How do you know how to give somebody the right amount of exercise when they're first getting started?
Asking really good questions, and understanding the motivation and what they're doing and how they're doing it and the intensity and all this. In the beginning of my coaching career, I was one of my good buddies owns a CrossFit gym in Burlington. Shout out to Scott Barbie, CrossFit 584. It's actually called something else different now, but anyways, I started working with some of his clients there, and the typical person that I saw, they usually had lost some weight, had some success, they're excited about this awesome community, but they were hitting it like 5, 6, 7 days a week, and I get it, because it's like CrossFit is addictive, right? And it's addictive because of the community and support and everybody doing something hard together. But what you don't understand is, what most typical Americans don't understand is these athletes that are, doing 2 and 3 wads a day, they're at 50% capacity. They're not competing every single day, but that's what the general population ends up doing, is competing, driving cortisol up, really messing up hormones, mood, making fat loss, impossible. And so what do? I mean, they eat less and they exercise more, to get the result that they're looking, to try to control that part of them that feels like it's out of control. Right. And so a lot of times I would come in and I would say, we got a problem. It was always like, hey, I can't lose weight. And then like, what's going on? And I've stalled for 6 months and I'm gaining, and I would say, you could see the white in their eyes. They had, a little bit of belly fat, like hormonal belly fat. And so what I would do is I'd put a heart rate strap on them and test their HRV for, 5 to 7 days in a row. And what I would typically say, I'd say, I don't want you to work out during this period of time. That's kind of a qualification for, can you be led and can you listen to me? And some of them couldn't. And I get that too. You got to be ready for this type of journey. But after 7 days, they went from looking like they were dying, like literally. And so I'm looking at raw data. I got trained by the lady that owns Sweet Beat HRV, and yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the power of their nervous system. I'm looking at both branches, and it looked like they were dying. I mean, a healthy athlete's going to be, both branches, they're going to be somewhere in like 2 to 10,000 on the HF and the LF. I don't know if that makes sense for the listeners, but it's basically measuring, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. Theirs would be single digits, double digits, sometimes 3, and their power of their nervous system would be in the floor as well. And they would go from double single digits to in the thousands again in 7 days. And color came back in their face. They looked really good. And I'm like, all right, here's what's going on, is you have driven cortisol up so high with these exercises because you're just maxed out. You're in like zone 3, 4, 5. You're just hammering it, and you're not giving yourself adequate time to recover. And on top of that, we're exercising more, eating less. And so that was like my diagnosis, and that's what I used to see where people are training. But I would say typically when I'm working, I do work with a high performer every now and then. My client is typically going to be someone who's just getting started, so it's a little bit easier. I haven't had to do that much talking people off the ledge anymore as much. I certainly had a client last year that I did that with, but now it's more like, hey, let's start walking first. Let's get some body weight movement in. Let's start throwing in some kettlebells when you're doing good with that. Let's get 2 or 3 days of strength training in, get you hiking long distance, once or twice a week, and just really take it. I'm really less is more these days. I want a big ROI for as little effort as you can put in. People are busy. Not everybody loves being in the gym like myself, and I'm sure you do as well. And that's cool, man. Like you can walk 10,000 steps, you can work out 2 or 3 times a week. Everything is adaptable and adjustable. It's really just understanding what you want and then reverse engineering a plan to get you there.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I couldn't agree more. And I don't know if you noticed what I just did, but I basically just recorded you doing my consult tomorrow. You did all my work for me. I'm just going to play her that clip of you talking, and I took care of it. So I appreciate that.
Hey, man, you can send me a Venmo when we're done.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. Well played. No, and the HRV is such a cool tool because it will tell you which side of your parasympathetic or sympathetic side of your nervous system is fired up, and then that gives you clues as to what to do. Is this the best timing for a hot tub, or is this the best time for a cold plunge? Do I need to go grounding? Do I need to work on mobility today, or can I crush a hard workout? You learn a lot of that stuff when you can dig into that data. It's very powerful.
And like even I remember, we're like, when I'm talking about this CrossFit gym, we're like 23, 25 years old. At that time, what was your workout like? You just wanted to hammer the shit out of yourself, right? Like you wanted the hardest workout and you just assumed the position afterwards when you're laid on the floor, just panting and fighting for your life. And, I started understanding, I should say this is a good story. At that time, I started understanding recovery because what would happen to me is I would come in there and if I did 2-3 days in a row, I could not sleep at all. And I'm like, what is going on? And I just happened to stumble across HRV and I saw that when I wasn't sleeping, it was basically got to wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. And what I would do is cortisol feels good, right? So I would be excited. I'd get up. Oh, I'm fired up. I'm going to go hit a gym. I'm going to go hit a workout and get a sauna in before breakfast. And then I really wouldn't sleep, and so I started wearing the heart rate strap and I saw like, oh, I'm smashed when I feel like that. And just like you said, like more data, more information you have, the better decisions you can make. And so, yeah, that same thing would happen with the guys at the gym. Like everybody would be dickheads by Thursday because they've been running Metcons or WODs all week and coaching and doing their training. And sure, they're eating and recovering, but there's only so much you can do when you're doing it every single day. So we started throwing in ice and heat and breath work and yoga and stuff like that. And even fast forward 10 years later, man, like that's where it's at. You're building muscle in the kitchen, eating and sleeping and, breaking down is like almost less of an important piece to me these days.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that comes with age, and I think it comes with wisdom that you learn that, like, yeah, you can do a hard workout, but you need a good recovery period after that to get the best results. It's not just all about killing yourself. I think I'm still sore from the one and only CrossFit workout I did like 15 years ago, where the guy would just tell me, like, go faster, go faster, go faster. Like, you didn't coach any kind of form whatsoever. It was not a good experience for me.
My first CrossFit class, I walk in, and that's why I didn't do the WODs that much. I walk in, there's like 225 or 315 on the bar. I can't remember. And it was like, do 10 deadlifts, run around the building, and then come back and hit these fast sit-ups. And I remember after like 2 or 3 sets, I'm gassed and I'm going slow, trying to keep he's like, you're going to go faster? I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? I'm watching these people bounce the weights and their low backs are just completely, what would that be? Not inflex, just rounded. And my back was I was like, dude, no way.
You reminded me of a CrossFit box by my house. I was riding my bike by one day and they pulled out the Airdyne and they had one guy doing the Airdyne. He was wearing an oxygen mask. Yeah. I just kind of looked at him on this Airdyne with this mask.
Yeah, and you're at altitude, right? You're already at altitude. Why do you need an altitude mask?
4,700 feet, man. Yeah, it was so bizarre.
That's hilarious.
Well, it's cool. It's been cool this last year. I got to travel to a lot of different low carbohydrate conferences and got to meet a lot of people. And it's very interesting to see how everybody kind of moves in a direction. Like you start to notice that I'm not the only one wearing barefoot shoes. I'm not the only one talking about cold plunges and saunas. Like it gets really kind of almost like homogenized the more you're kind of in this world and people are aware of EMFs. And one of those things that I noticed that a lot of people become more aware of in this space is childhood trauma. And so I'd love to hear your experience with that. Did you know you had childhood trauma? Was it a surprise to you? And how were you able to deal with it?
Yeah, man. Was it a surprise to me? Absolutely. I think one of the common threads that I hear from practitioners and therapists and people in the mental health field is when you bring up trauma and somebody says, how dare you? I had an amazing childhood. And I did have an amazing childhood. My parents loved me. They took care of me. They provided for me. But there was just certain things that societal norms that affected me differently. And I would say that trauma is not the event, it's the dysregulation that happens in your nervous system after the event. So what that would look like when I say dysregulation, we have a stressor come in, we go into fight or flight, so we come up, the stressor goes away. Naturally, we should come down and relax. That's the parasympathetic. But whenever we have trauma, we may stay up here all the time or be down here. And even for me, like being an adrenaline junkie and chasing a couple, we were talking about skiing before we got on. I used to say my favorite day would be, nitro cold brew with like some headphones in, going 100 miles an hour on some sativa down, double black diamond, and that's because that's what I was used to. I was used to being up here in stress. And even when I started healing, I started to sabotage myself, and what I mean by that is like in my biohacking days, if I was feeling really good, I would take something else and it just blasts me through the roof, and then I'm crashed down here. And I'm feeling like shit if I'm low because I'm used to high. And if I'm feeling normal, I'm going to sabotage myself either to bring in a stressor or crush me. That's because that was my conditioning. That's what I was used to. That's the familial trauma that's handed down generation to generation. And we are in it until we're not, until we have someone that educates us. That's why I think education is huge when it comes to the nervous system. A lot of therapists have so much good information, you just don't see it out there. And that's where Irene Lyon, shout out to her again, she is big on putting that information out. And so for me, I've been looking for 17 years. I've been taking complex information and studying science and applying that myself and teaching other people how to do that. And so when you give me science around physiology of the nervous system, I'm like, holy shit. And what happens is you start to understand this stuff, and like no other course I've ever done in my life, and I'm sure you've done a million like me too, this thing lit me up. Like I couldn't deny it. I did 3 days in a row of the first course that I did, and I couldn't sleep. I had so much anxiety. I was, shaking, and that's because all my shit got triggered, right? And it's not even conscious, right? It's unconscious because your unconscious mind, it wants to protect you from all this shit, all this scary stuff. You block that out, yet it is in your body and it is controlling you. And you're literally you're attracting more of the trauma stuff that you haven't healed. And until you know that and wake up, and it's like Matrix, man. It's like red pill, blue pill. I mean, it was shocking to me, and it still is. I'm still working through stuff, but man, I'm one who's been in pain for so long. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. I'm gonna do it, whatever it takes to heal. And I'm gonna love me and listen to my body and really be in my body. And yeah, bro, that's how we heal. But it's a process. It's a lifestyle, just like health. And that's why I love it is, it's the missing piece that I didn't have. Like I knew mindset, mental and emotional stuff, like manifestation and Joe Dispenza and quantum physics and all that stuff was great, but I was spiritually bypassing the nervous system, the trauma that was screaming at me for help. And that's a really good point there is we become afraid of our physiology, that anxiety, that depression, that pain, whatever that is that we all have, right? Like that's not something to be afraid of. That's your best friend coming to save you. And when you can listen to that and see what is it that it wanted to express that it didn't get to express before it got shut down and shut down into your body, fight, flight, freeze. Freeze goes into the body. And it's listening to that anxiety, befriending it, and figuring out why it's there, because it's there to heal you.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it's so hard to remember that. And that's why I think your work is so unique and so needed out there, is because you're addressing all of these things. It is nutrition. It's also exercise. It's also the trauma. It's the emotional. It's the breath work. There's so many different components to it. And I just see them all running together. You know what I mean? Like if you can improve one, it's going to help you do the other things better. I think, changing the diet helps people with their emotional practices and meditation practice. I think all of that improves together. And I think that's a really cool component of what you do. Can you tell the listeners, like, basically what your program is like, how people can work with you?
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate the opportunity to share that. It's changed so much, man. This nervous system stuff that I've been learning about this year, and I'm not a practitioner of that yet. I'm certainly going to be getting certified and doing more of that in the future. But it just changed the way that I look at health. Before I was shooting people. I feel like I was looking back now. I was doing the best that I could at the time, so I'm not taking that away, but it was the shoulds, right? You should do this and you shouldn't do that. This is good, this is bad. Like, who am I to take somebody's power away and their ability to choose, right? And so now, instead of, like, people would come to me, tell me what to do. There is going to be some hand holding and some guiding and some, being kind of like the gutter rails at the bowling alley, right? Like keeping them from going too far or too little in the beginning. But ultimately, I want to teach people how to get in touch with their body and what do you want, man? You know what I mean? What makes you excited? Does eating no carbs sound great to you, or you want to? Because there's a million ways to get up the mountain. We have to be smart about it. There's a lot of things that are similar for humans, and we have different patterns. But ultimately, learning to listen to your body and understanding what you need, that's a big part of what I do. And then from there, it's hard to describe because there is no sequential step. It's just meeting people where they're at. It's going, hey, what's going on? Why are we talking? Why are we on the phone call today? What obstacles are in front of you? And then, let's create a plan to get you there, and let's go with the low hanging fruit. Like, what sounds exciting to you right now? Does working on your nutrition sound good? Does like, I had a guy last week, he's like, man, I feel bad whenever I eat and I don't know where to start. So we started with, let's see what you're eating, man. And I, after a week, I'm like, hey, good news. I know what's wrong. You're eating like shit. And like, if we can start making better decisions, you're going to feel a whole lot better. I've worked with him for 2 weeks. This is over Thanksgiving. He's lost 4 pounds and he's eating 4 times the amount of food that he was. So we just got him off of processed stuff, got him eating meat and vegetables and throwing a little bit of starch in there here and there. And lo and behold, he's like, man, I'm not bloated. I don't feel bad anymore. I got energy and I lost 4 pounds and I enjoyed Thanksgiving. And I'm like, yeah, that's the thing, man, is like, it's so stupid. It's simple. Right. And the thing is if we're ignoring the mental and emotional side of things, the unprocessed stress or trauma that we're carrying, that stuff's never going to make sense. We're not going to be able to make a good decision. We're not going to be able to listen to our voice. We're going to be, disconnected and out of our body and listening to or depending on external resources to validate our experience or to tell us what works and what doesn't. And the hard work is learning to listen and taking one step at a time and meeting people where they're at and slowly building out this definition of what health looks like for you and helping them build a lifestyle that allows them to reach their goals and have a system that they can depend on for the rest of their life to have optimal health.
That's fantastic, dude. Very cool. I'd love again, the work that you're doing with people and how you're able to bring all this stuff together. I know you're very busy. Thank you so very much for taking time to be on our show today. Where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and your work?
Yeah, bro. Thank you so much for the call or the chat. It's been awesome. I feel like kind of brother from another mother here vibes. But
we're homies, dude.
Yeah. You can find me mitchwebb.com. If anybody's interested in coaching, I'll do free consultations for anybody that's listening. You can also find me on Instagram at kmitchwebb, and you can find me on LinkedIn under Mitch Webb as well.
Excellent. We will link all of those in the show notes. Mitch Webb, again, thank you so very much for all of your work. Please stop hitting your head on stuff. Stop
no doubt, bro.
Hitting your head on stuff.
No doubt.
Stop doing the double black diamonds on Nitro Brew coffee, dude.
For sure.
Bring it down. Again, it's so cool all the work you're doing and the way you're sharing this with people. And so I really appreciate your unique approach and appreciate you stopping by our show today. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And thank you for letting me be on the show.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio. Dude, that was great.
Yeah, dude. I enjoyed it.
That was great. You're a good guest.
Thanks, man. Thanks.